Hi everybody, it's Mr. Burke back again to read some more Clementine and the Spring Trip. We're on to chapter 8 and we're getting pretty close to the end of this book. I'm excited. Let's see how it ends. Right off the bat, I have to show you a picture because they are on bus 7, back with the stink cloud, the cloud. Let's hope they can make the return trip home safely. Here we go with chapter 8. Back on the bus, the cloud was thicker than ever. We sank into our seats, and the kids around me began to talk about the field trip. In Olive talk, which sounded even weirder because they were holding their noses against the cloud. I slumped against the window and watched the scenery whiz by. I learned that if I kept my eyes locked in one position, I could make the trees look like they were in a blender, which was fun, but not fun enough. Olive elbowed me. Tell them about the Olive Inn, Clementine. I still didn't have any caring left because of that chicken. You do it. It will sound good in Olive talk, which I can't do, I admitted. Olive waved her hands like that was nothing. Oh, me too. I had a hard time too, she said. When I was first inventing it, my mouth got all confused. I had to go one sound at a time. Suddenly, I was reminded of what my dad had said when we were working on the Pentagon. Say one word really slowly, Olive. One sound at a time, I asked. Olive held out her hand. Huh? Huh, I repeated. So far, so good. Huh? Olive, she said, stopping after each part. Huh? Olive, I said slowly. Huh? Olive and, Olive said. Huh? Olive and, I repeated. Olive and. Olive and. I did it. I shook Olive's Olive and. Olive Anks, I said. Olive Anks. Amanda Lee's head popped in between us. Teach me too, she begged Olive. I changed seats with Amanda Lee so Olive could talk with her and I could talk with Margaret without our necks twisting off. Except for washing the peas, I knew Margaret hadn't had a very good time on the field trip. But hey, I said to cheer her up, no more eating sounds rule. Margaret leaned over and picked some imaginary lint from her skirt. I couldn't do it, she whispered. I wanted to, but I just couldn't. Margaret, what makes you so afraid anyway? What do the mean fourth graders do? Margaret dropped her head and whispered, I don't know. They never said. What? I yelped. Let me tell you. I wanted to say a whole lot more. I wanted to say how crazy it was. I wanted to say, you were so afraid all this time, and you didn't even know what you were afraid of? Well, it wasn't some kind of actual torture, and you made me afraid of it too. But one look at Margaret's face made me stop talking. It made me realize something. Margaret was just afraid of breaking rules. Period. Margaret liked rules so much, she even liked the ones she didn't like. I patted her shoulder, and Margaret let me, even though she is usually not so fond of people touching her. Margaret, I said, instead of all I wanted to say, I'm going to be in fourth grade soon. Uh-huh. Margaret, lift your head up. Look at me. Margaret didn't lift her head, but she side-eyed me for a second. What? I'm going to be a fourth grader in September. That's only about 150 days away. I need to learn how to boss people, I said. You're so lucky, she said. Fourth grade for a whole year. Except that I don't know how to do it, I said. When I try to make Spinach do something, he falls over laughing, and then he goes and does the opposite. I need to practice on someone, and you're going to be a fifth grader, so you need to practice how to be bossed. Let's try it now. Margaret groaned, but then she surprised me. You're right. Let's do it. I dug around in my backpack for my dad's bag of pecans. I took out a nut. All right. Ready, Margaret? I am ordering you to break the no eating sounds rule. No way, Margaret said, backing away and eyeing the pecan like it might be trying to bite her. I want to, but you have to boss me better. You have to give me an or else. Okay, fine, I said. Margaret, crunch. or else. Margaret rolled her eyes. Or else what? You can't just say or else. You have to give me an or else thing. Okay. Or else I won't give you any apples from my new tree. No, 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 no. Margaret shook her head so hard a barrette flew off and clattered under Maria and Rashid's seat. Oh, you have to make it a really bad or else. Something that will make me do it. Look at her barrette going flying. I looked around for inspiration. How about, or else I won't climb down there and get your barrette for you. I'll make you go and get it yourself. Margaret pasted herself against the bus seat and shuddered at the horror of what might be under there. Then she screwed her face up and thought for a minute. These are my favorite barrettes, and now I only have one, and I hate only having one because what side will you wear it on? But it's still not bad enough. It has to be something really, really bad. Okay, then. I revved up my bossiest face. Margaret, I order you to break the rule and crunch that pecan, or else I will crawl under that seat and get your barrette, and then I'll clamp it back into your hair. Ah! Margaret screamed and threw her arms over her face. That's horrible. That's a good one, all right. Then she lifted a nut and brought it to her face. She opened her mouth. She inched the nut closer. Then she curled her lips over her teeth. Nope, I said, bare teeth or else. I jerked my thumb toward the bus floor. Margaret took a deep breath and nodded. She opened her mouth so wide I could see all her braces. And then she bit down. Now, compared to what I had done at lunch, Margaret's bite sounded like a moth's footstep. It sounded like a moth's footstep if the moth was crossing a carpet and wearing socks. But I had heard it, and Margaret had heard it, and it was enough for both of us. We sat there quietly, having a proud time for a while, and trying not to breathe the cloud. Wow, Margaret said after a minute. You are good at bossing people. Usually when someone says I'm good at something, I feel happy. But Margaret's compliment made me feel a little sad. Thanks, I said anyway. You were a good teacher. Thanks, Margaret said back. She looked a little sad about her compliment, too. Or maybe I thought, maybe she was sad because after all that being bossed, she still only had one barrette. I looked down at the bus floor. Mrs. Rice was right. It did look as if it had just been cleaned. I'll be right back, Margaret, I said. Then I slid to the floor and twisted under the seat. The smell from the cloud was much worse under there. I held my breath and wriggled between Rashid's and Maria's feet, and then under the next seat, and there I found Margaret's barrette. I rolled onto my back to tuck it into my jacket pocket. Just as I was about to crawl back, I saw something weird. On the underside of Willie and Lily's seat, there was an arrow. A real arrow, not a drawn one. A long, thin, black metal arrow, stuck to the bottom of the seat with a wad of chewing gum. It looked familiar, but I couldn't place it at first. And then I did. I saw an arrow just like it every day, on every clock inside our school. I suddenly knew. This was the minute hand Baxter had stolen from Principal Rice's clock. It was pointing to a screw at the edge of the seat, and it was still telling the time. Baxter's stolen minute hand was telling me it was time to unscrew the seat covering. I'd have to be like Baxter to do it, though. I'd have to use any ways and means available to achieve my goal, and right there, in my pocket, I had a perfect ways and means, Margaret's barrette. Its end was like a thin screwdriver blade. I fitted it into the head of the screw. Just then, I felt a kick on the bottom of my sneaker. What are you doing under there? Maria's voice asked. Being resourceful, I answered. Then I went to work. It was hard to see under there and hard to work because the screw was about an inch from my nose. It was hard to breathe, too, because the smell from the cloud grew stronger every minute. My fingers kept slipping off the barrette, and the barrette kept slipping out of the slot, but I kept reminding myself, one tool, one hand, one step, and finally I got the screw out. The seat covering flapped down a little, and a strip of paper fluttered down. I picked it up. In fat marker, loud, capital letters, the note said, "I am not a liar." I tugged on the seat cover and heard something slide. I skidded away just as a sandwich bag filled with dark, slimy glop splattered to the floor. I scrambled to my feet. "Charlie," I hollered up the aisle, "I found your Aguna sandwich." Rashid jumped up as if the seat was on fire and grabbed Maria's hand. "I will rescue you." According to Rashid, rescuing each other is a big part of being in love with someone. Next, Willie leaped out of his seat, and for the first time in her life, Lily did exactly what Willie did, instead of the other way around. Pretty soon, everyone on the bus knew that I had found the cloud, and that Baxter had left it. Mrs. Rice steamed down the aisle in her car seat sandals, armed with a magazine and another plastic bag. She scraped up the sandwich with the magazine and knotted the plastic bag around it and told us we could open the windows. Her face was like a billboard sign. There she is with the sandwich, the source of the cloud. Her face was like a billboard sign, one you could read a mile away. "I must have been crazy to go on this trip," her face said. "I must have been crazy to want to be a principal in the first place. Get me out of here." Which was a lot for a face to say, even one as big as Principal Rice's. I flopped back down next to Margaret. I could tell she was wishing there was a bathroom on the bus so she could push me into a hot shower. Instead, she ripped open a bunch of wipes. "We'll start with the hands, one wipe for each finger." Margaret said it with a deep frown, but somehow I thought she looked pretty happy. My parents were on the couch, fake wrestling summer squash for the TV remote when I walked in. Remember that vegetable name for her younger brother, Summer Squash, this time. My mom looked up. "How was Plymouth Plantation?" "Good," I said. I dropped my backpack. "I met a chicken. I'm a vegetarian." My heart started to rev up again, punching me from the inside. It hurt. A lot. Unfair. If it was moisturizer, who says we should? Chickens don't eat us. My words tumbled over each other. My arms pinwheeled. My voice rose higher and higher. I couldn't stop. "Remember how you said we're all us, and we're all them, and we're all on the same team, Mom? Well, that should mean chickens, too. The pledge should be a promise about liberty and justice for all, including chickens, which we won't eat. My country, 'tis of thee, should be a song about the home of the free, including chickens, which we won't eat, and all other animals. We have to be fair." My brother let go of the remote and gaped, as if he'd never seen me before. Look at Clementine go. Those arms are waving. My father leaned back and scratched his head, repeating, "Vegetarian? As in, no bacon?" Over and over, as if he couldn't understand such a ridiculous thought. And through it all, my mother just sat there, looking at me with her head cocked and a funny expression on her face. I recognized it. It was the look she wore whenever our baby moved inside her. She says it feels like there's a little otter in her belly, wriggling and swimming around. She always looks half baffled and half amazed at the crazy weird miracle of that. Except now my mother didn't have her eyes closed. She was looking right at me. Finally, she spoke. "Why, Clementine," she said with the same "what the heck is this crazy weird miracle" expression, "I think you're going crunchy on us." My dad stopped mid "no bacon-ing." "You're right," he said. "Our daughter is going—" "Hold on," I said. "You know about going crunchy, Mom?" My mother rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, of course I know. I know everything that goes on in this family." My dad drew a quick secret pentagon in the air behind her and shook his head to say, "Nope, she sure does not know everything." I winked back and stretched my hands out so I could give my mom a tug up from the couch. "So, okay, No more eating animals, right? I asked her. I don't know, Clementine. It's a lot to think about, said my mom. She was wearing the crazy, weird miracle look again. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that you really believe in this, and tonight, that makes you the captain of this family's team. There they are, embraced in a hug. And that, my fabulous friends, is the end of Clementine and the Spring Trip. Here's some pictures of the covers of some more Clementine books if you really enjoyed this one. I hope you did. I know I did. And I hope you get a chance to read more out of this wonderful series and see what else Clementine and her friends get up to. Thank you very much for listening, and hopefully we'll have another chapter book soon. You're all the best. Thank you very much.